Welcome to the coop. So, come along with me on a journey as I tell the Bible to my chickens. There's 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and I was trying to read them, and it would be too much for my ADD to keep up with and go through them, and each Gospel tells a story in its own way, and some have bits in it that aren't the same, but majority of them are the same. So what I'm going to do is just pick and choose the important parts and kind of chronologically do this thing together. So got to start with John, if you ask me. So there's a guy named Zechariah, and he's a priest. And one day they came and they're like, "Hey, you got chosen to go ahead and get in the temple and do some setups and some incense burning and stuff like that." So he goes in there to do his thing. While he's doing his thing, this angel comes to visit him. It's just like, imagine you're sitting there minding your own business, doing your stuff, and then poof, back home, man, back up, bro. Like, who are you? Where'd you come from? And the angel's like, don't be worried. It's all good. To come with a message from God that, y'all are gonna have a baby. The baby's gonna do amazing things for the Israelites, the Gentiles. He's gonna change a lot of things, but most importantly, he's going to, prepare the way for the Messiah that's coming to, save the world. And the guy looks at him and probably says, "Have you seen my wife? I mean, not that she's ugly or anything, but we've been trying and we don't have no kids and we're old." And so the guy goes, "My name's Gabriel, man. Seeing how you don't believe me, you're just going to be a mute until, you'll be a mute until the baby's named." So he ends up leaving the temple, and obviously he can't speak because he didn't believe that this was true. A couple months goes by, and the angel's a busy guy, so he decides he's going to go visit, Mary, and let her know that you're going to have a baby as well. At this point, I'm going to assume, Gabriel's gone and given his message. Now he goes back to heaven, and God's like, "You know what? I need you to go back." He's probably like, "Come on, man. I just got back. I was going to catch the game, do a little relaxing. Nah, you tell me I got to go back." So he heads on back to talk to Mary. And at that point, he probably just like, poof, kicked the door open, coming in. "Hey, Mary, you're going to have a kid," and Mary was young, I think like 16 years old. So she's like, "I'm not even married. I don't know if you know how this works, but got to be married, You can't have kids till you're married." So a disgrace to everybody in the place. And he's like, they have a nice conversation about it. And she goes, "All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'll agree to this whole baby thing through the Holy Spirit. I'm a very religious person." And here's where I kind of like, I'm reading it and I'm like, that'd be really interesting if it was me anyway, So Joseph finds out about it, her boyfriend. So I got a pregnant girlfriend, and it wasn't me. So she goes, "Hey, I'm pregnant." He's like, "What?" So he goes, "I'm going to sleep on it tonight, but I'm going to break up with her probably secretly so I don't disgrace her in front of all these people." Well, while he's sleeping, the angel comes back. He's like, "Man, I'm a busy dude, bro. Let's get this over with, man." He explains to him what the baby is. The baby's going to be the Messiah. This is, don't disgrace her, don't leave her. You're going to marry her, and, you're going to raise this child, and this child's going to change the world. So you got to figure, man, Joseph's sitting there hearing all this, and he's probably going, "I know everybody in this town, but I've never heard of this guy called Holy Spirit. But if I find him, I got a problem with him." So after a really long talk, they get it squared away. And Joseph's like, "Okay, I will go ahead and do this." And he decides that he's going to marry Mary, and he marries Mary. About 9 months after John's parents got their little thing, visit, it's time for the baby to be born. Now remember, Zechariah, who was the priest, hasn't spoken a word since the baby was born. Since the baby was conceived. And now he's looking at, it's time to name the baby. So the baby gets born. And everybody's asking him, what do you want to name the baby? Well, he can't speak. So people probably start putting in their own 2 cents. Like everybody does this as friends and family. They go, oh, we should name him Bob, you know. He looks like a Larry, you know. Name him Zachariah after his dad. And they finally get him. He gets a piece of something to write something down, and he writes the name John. And I'm assuming at this point, when he writes the name John, everybody there is just shocked because, you know, Elizabeth said John. He didn't know this. You know, he's trying to, you know, just follow what the angel told him to say. And everybody's in shock. And then you know, I picture it this, man. Your first words after 9 months is like, John, you know, and it's like just pure shock. And now you have the story of how John was born, you know, how he was conceived, how he was, you know, ordained and predestined to come into the world. I also assume that after like 2 weeks of this guy Zachariah talking, his wife probably was like, you know, praying in private to God that if you could just shut him up for a little while, that'd be cool. It was nice when he was quiet. I know my wife sometimes tells me that it'd be nice if you just shut up. So we move from there back to Jesus, you know, and this chicken's going to kill this thing. So we move back to Jesus. Do you hear me? We're moving back to Jesus. So we'll move back to Jesus. And at that time, when there was a census, you had to be brought back to where you were born. So, you know, Joseph was, you know, born in Bethlehem, and it was time for him to be counted. So that's how they ended up back in Bethlehem. They had to travel back to Bethlehem. So load up a pregnant girl that, you know, I'm still sitting there saying, I don't know whose kid this is. And I'm trusting that God is in on this. And so he loads up Mary, and he's being very obedient, like tremendously obedient at this point. And he goes back, and they travel to Bethlehem, and they get censored, and now she's about to have a baby. And I'm assuming that everybody in Bethlehem at that time was selfish, greedy, or whatever. You got a pregnant woman and you got nowhere to stay, so it's like no room here, no room here, no room there. But it was pretty much prophesied that she would be giving birth inside a manger in a barn. So that's what they did. They found a place with a trough, probably something that animals ate out of, cleaned it out, put some hay in there. She had the baby, and boom, Jesus is born. So John the Baptist is born a couple months before Jesus. Jesus is born in a manger, and we get to the 3 wise men. 3 wise men, they're not sure how long they traveled. They could have traveled for, you know, years following this star. But they end up coming through this area, and they meet this guy, King Herod. King Herod is, you know, loves being worshipped. He's the king, you know. And they come in, and they're like, where's the baby, man? Where's the baby? And he's going, what are you talking about? What do you mean the baby? So they have a nice conversation about this, and, you know, they're like, this is the Messiah. We were here to worship him. He ain't too happy with this, so he calls a secret meeting with his people, and nobody knows what this is. Nobody knows the baby, nothing. So he turns around and goes back to them and says, hey, I'd love to worship the baby. How about you go, meet him, do your thing, come back and get me, and let me know where he's at. So they go off and do, you know, their thing. They follow the little star. They get where they're going. They meet Jesus, give him the gold, frankincense, and myrrh, you know, gifts and presents. They worship for a couple of days. Well, angels were busy back then, man, because angel visits them and says, hey, King Herod's got some really not so pleasant thoughts going on about Jesus, and, you know, he really doesn't want to give up his kingdom, and he thinks, you know, this guy's going to grow up, overthrow his kingdom. And at that point, King Herod's like, I'm leaving all my stuff to my kids. I'm not going to let that happen. So they already plotted against, you know, doing something to Jesus. So the angel tells him, look, don't go back. So obedience, man. They say, okay, we're not going to go back. So they take the long way home, you know, just like the song, you know, you take the long way home. So they take the long way home, and they avoid King Herod. Well, King Herod's not happy about that, is he? Because now he has no clue where Jesus is. So the only thing he can come up with is he's going to kill every baby under 2 years old in his area. Just go ahead and kill and maim them all. So while they're making this plan, we got another visit from an angel. I'm telling you, these angels were so busy back then making sure that all this played out perfectly. Angel tells Joseph, look, this is not the time to make a stand. This is not the time to do anything, crazy. We're telling you right now, let's pack everybody up. We're going to do a little traveling. Let's go on vacation. So I'm going to send you off to Egypt. Just get out of here. Just go. So Joseph and Mary pack everything up. They head off on to Egypt. At this time, once they're out and they're in Egypt, sad thing is King Herod went ahead and pulled off his plan, and they went and killed every baby under the age of 2, just to make sure that there was no Messiah, that there was no opportunity for somebody to take over his kingdom. And at this point, we now have the birth of John the Baptist, and we have the birth of Jesus. We have the escape of Jesus, who now is in another area so that he can grow up in a safer location, we'll say. And we'll get back to reading, and we'll come back in here and we'll pick it up again another night.